Good afternoon and welcome. We are calling the ASDB Board Meeting to order at, we'll just say 4 p.m. And can you do roll call, Brittany?
I can. Suke Kneifel?
Present.
I am Brittany Buchanan. I am present. Michael Gordon?
I'm here.
Linda Bove?
Present.
Katie Cinco?
Present.
Lynn Davison?
Present.
Earl Terry? Colette Chapman?
Present.
That's it.
Moving on, information item 1.2. Just an introduction, we do have a new board member who is not able to make it tonight, so we will hold off on her introduction till the next board meeting. Moving on to 1.3, the campus student assessments. Presentation by Rosie De La Cruz.
Hello. I am Rosie De La Cruz. I am the Deputy Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction. My team and I will be talking about student data assessments. Hi there, good afternoon. I'm Paul Saunders, Principal of ASDB Tucson Campus. We'd like to go over a bit about our benchmark assessments that we perform twice a year to show student growth over time. This shows the performance of the students' academic progress throughout the year through state assessments. After receiving results, we review the different areas of growth that guides us in improving our instruction. We have 3 formative assessments we use here at ASDB: MAPS testing, which is used at both ASDB and PDSD, specifically for the ASD population. We have Galileo testing, used for ASB, our blind visually impaired population. And we also have the bilingual grammar curriculum to assess ASL language acquisition. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Olivier. I am the Organizational Department Director, and our department is responsible for collecting data of these assessments from each of the campuses. I'd like to acknowledge some highlights. You have the slides with additional information. I won't go over each data point, but I'd like to highlight some areas of improvement and growth throughout the years. A comparative gain of the last 2 years, school year 2022 to 2023 to now 24-25. We will be discussing what areas of growth have been made. The 4 content areas to discuss are science. What's interesting about this data point is that it's collected via the MAP test scores. We like to compare our scores to other schools for the deaf. MAPS testing is used nationally with both hearing and deaf students. But as you know, we are a specific population. So we were able to compare ourselves to the Utah School for the Deaf, as they hold public information for us to compare our data points. So we can see if we are on par with other schools for the deaf.
Excuse me, this is Colette, and I can't hear.
This is Lynn. I can't hear either.
Oh, okay. Okay, I was wondering. Okay, thank you.
And this is Michelle Kunzman on the line from the AG's office, and I can't hear either. And I just sent a message to Deborah Sterling, who I believe is there, so hopefully she saw the message.
And I sent one to Letitia Bruce. So.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Testing. Board members on the phone, can you hear us now? Testing. Hello, testing. Can you hear us now?
This is Sukay. Are you guys still on the line?
Yes,
I can hear
am.
you.
Okay. So you can hear me, but you're still not hearing the interpreter?
Hello, can you hear the interpreter?
No.
No.
Okay. We're working on it.
Okay, thank you.
Testing. Can you hear me now? Can you hear the interpreter?
Yes.
Okay, this is Michael Olivier. Are we ready to come back from our commercial break? Just to quickly go over our areas of highlight. In science, our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade points received gains. There were areas in growth for language, but there were specific grades that were outliers. The scores made minimal improvement of about 2 to 7 points between the 3rd to 11th grade. In the area of math, interestingly, there was a large area of growth, which indicates that we are doing well in that subject area. It indicates that in high school there was a little bit of a drop, so we are taking a closer look as to the reason why there was a change in test scoring. This is Paul. I'd like to review the ASDB Galileo assessment. We assessed ELA for 3rd to 8th grade. First testing showed 91% standing scores, but by the second benchmark, there was growth of 31%. Those grades tested were 9 to 12, with the 4% increase by the end of the last benchmark. Math, 3rd grade to 8th grade benchmark, and the initial benchmark testing started at 3.5%, but by the second benchmark, there was a 4.6% growth. 48.6% growth, excuse me. We have 70% of our students passing the benchmark in Galileo. Again, that test is designed as accessible for blind and vision impaired students. They do not take the MAPS test. Hello, my name is Jill Voigt, and I am the principal at the Phoenix campus. And tonight I'd like to discuss 2 assessment points: AASA, the Arizona Academic Standards Assessment, and the MSAA assessment, which is the Multi-State Alternative Assessment. So let's start with the AASA. We had 117 students take that assessment from grades 3 to 8. We noticed that in the elementary level, 3rd grade through 5th grade, there was a lot of minimally proficient scores, or below minimally proficient scores. That indicated that foundational skills were still lacking. But by grade 6, we saw improvement, and we saw students who were performing at proficient levels. By grades 7 and 8, we saw similar patterns. We had a lot of students still at level 1, which is again minimally proficient. And some of the individual students were starting to show or demonstrate growth. So we know that we can do it. Now, with the MSAA assessment, we had a total of 32 students that took this assessment in the areas of ELA. We had 10 students that reached level 2, which means moderately proficient. 2 students achieved level 3, which means that they understood the material. 18 students were scored at below minimally proficient, which placed them at level 1. For math, we had 5 students that obtained level 2, which is basically proficient, basic proficiency. 7 students reached level 3, which means that they can understand grade level material. So that's really exciting. In that grouping, we had 4 level 2 students who obtained level 4, which is above grade level proficiency. So we're really excited about that math score. In the area of science, we had students at the 5th, 8th, and high school levels. Most of them scored at level 1. One of the students performed at level 2, which was approaching. Now the biggest takeaways are, what are we doing with this information? If it's okay with the team, I'd like to briefly explain that I've now established a school improvement team to do specific data digs, as what this data is informing us. And in January, we will start a tutoring program to target specific students in grades 3 through high school. We also will be doing more walkthroughs as administrators to see teachers actively teaching to the standards, to expose the students to those standards, and many other things we are doing as a result of these assessments, but I won't go through all of them now. This is Michael Olivier again. One last piece, our bilingual grammar curriculum. This was implemented, I would say, it's been in the works for a few years now, so it's a fairly new bilingual approach to deaf education. So many of our deaf students come to us with ASL as their primary language. So we work with ASL as the primary mode of learning and scaffold that with English. Bilingual grammar curriculum, specifically in that curriculum, we were able to assess vocabulary. And these are not terms that are used in conversation. These are specific sight words in the bilingual grammar curriculum, making sure they have a foundation of these common words. And the average for kindergarten to fifth grade students, vocabulary retention was at 60.4 terms from the designed vocabulary list. From grades 6 to 12, the vocabulary retention increased from 152. $152.2. And I will wait. We have some technical issues coming up. Okay. So yes. So most students at the high school level were able to achieve 152 words. We noticed a trend of in second grade where language acquisition flourished. Students would come to us at kindergarten with no language or vocabulary. In second grade, after being involved in the bilingual grammar curriculum and that foundation, is where we noticed growth. So second grade was the window of opportunity. Because of this assessment, we realized that we need to improve our training and our professional development for our teachers and our assessments, making sure that we have enough trainers and assessors. With the number of turnovers, that has impacted the training of our staff, so we have to retrain new staff or retrain our staff or train new staff. But again, the numbers indicate that there has been growth. This is Rosie. Obviously, as we know, there are many pros and cons to state assessments. The number of students, the cohorts vary throughout the year, so results are not always consistent. Sometimes one year you have a large work sample, where you have many students, and then in the following year, the numbers reduce, depending on the enrollment. Every assessment is a snapshot of the student's ability. It is not an accumulation of their progress. Our sample sizes are small because of our specific disabilities. So for MAPS testing, we use RIT scores based off of the national average for hearing students and all grade levels. So for math RIT scores compared to science RIT scores may look incredibly different based off of the student population. So it's hard to compare apples to apples based off of these assessments. Of course, we serve a unique population of students with a variety of language needs and backgrounds and abilities, which means there's not one size fits all with these assessments. Currently, our state assessments and our benchmark assessments are not designed for our deaf, hard of hearing, blind, and visually impaired students. So it's hard to really determine a full scope and picture of these students' potential. Some state assessments are phonic-based, which means that it's not accessible for deaf and hard of hearing students. Under the guidance of ADE, our ODD director, and our assessment coordinator, we are working to realize the full potential of our students by explaining the differences that our students have when taking these state assessments. So we are actively working together to improve outcomes, to make it more equitable for our students. I'd like now to turn it over to Orrin if you have anything further you'd like to discuss in terms of the letter grade.
Thank you. I do not. I thought you all did a very thorough job, but I'm here to help if there's any questions on the board.
Are there any questions? Thank you. We appreciate your...
This is Linda. I do have a question about ELA, English Language Arts. It is rather important as a foundation. If we have language, then you can learn other subjects. So how are we planning to, thank you for, first of all, for the report and the presentation. Thank you so much. But in looking at this, to get a clear picture for us, for me specifically, I would like to know what is going to be done. I'm sure you guys have a vision or a plan for how we're planning to raise those ELA scores. Math is doing great, science seems to be doing good, but we seem to have the most struggle in the area of ELA, which is pretty foundational. So back to you to clarify that.
This is Rosie. As Jill mentioned, we are offering tutoring for both campuses, and we're also looking at creating an advisory period throughout the student's day. So a time in their schedule where they can catch up on homework, target skills, work with transition programs. As we know, our students are now preparing for the real world, and post-secondary education requires a strong ELA base. So we are making sure we are targeting specific skills to our students and offering the appropriate courses. We're looking at considering extending the time block for students and their schedule so that they can have more direct instruction. We also have instructional coaches in place. They are working with all staff to work on what we call the impact cycle. So they come in, do walkthroughs, they work with teachers on creating lesson plans, talk about teaching strategies, and how to improve the reading and writing scores for our students.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
This is Katie. I wanted to say that you did a wonderful job with this presentation. I'm glad to hear that you've identified some areas where the students show their strengths, and we can use that to tailor their programming to use their strengths to help them with their prepare for life after graduation. It's critical to setting them up for success. I'm excited to see how they achieve what their outcomes are with tutoring. I think that is a fantastic idea. And hats off to you, your team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
CK, can we
Switch over. Yeah.
try to do the phone? Check. On the phone, can you hear this microphone? On the phone, can you hear this microphone? Okay. Can you bring up the Check. On the phone, can you hear this microphone? Hello? Everyone on the phone, anyone?
Yes, I think.
You can hear? Okay. Thank you.
All right, moving on to 1.4, information item, brief overview of the Early Learning Program. Kendra Benedict, Early Learning Program Director.
Those on the phone, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Very good. Good afternoon, ASDB Board of Directors, Board President Kneifel, Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendents Ketchup and Cooper on the phone, and the greater ASDB community. We just spoke about how our kids are doing in kindergarten through 12th grade. We talked about the importance of them being ready to go out into the world when they're 18 years old. I'm going to back us up 18 years, and we're going to talk birth to 5 for a second. That's where it all starts, right? And we all often talk about the importance of early childhood.
I don't think there's anyone in this room that would say those 5 years are pretty much the most important periods of time in our life. Okay? I want to just talk for a minute about why that is. I just want to refresh our memories as to why those first 5 years are so important, because I think sometimes it's just something we say and we forget why. The brain is most flexible or plastic to learning during the earliest years of life, while its capacity for change decreases with age. As the maturing brain becomes more specialized to assume more complex functions, it is less capable of reorganizing and adapting to new or unexpected challenges. Although the windows for language learning and other skills remain open, these brain circuits become increasingly difficult to alter over time. Early plasticity means it's easier and more effective to influence a baby's developing brain architecture than to rewire parts of its circuitry in the adult years. In the first few years of life, more than 1 million new neural connections are formed every second. This is where ASDB's Early Learning Program comes in. Our mission: to empower and support the growth of families and learners through coaching and specialized instructional methods. What do we value? Child, family, and community, connections, advocacy, equity, perseverance, support, and grace. We provide an array of services to approximately 700 children birth to age 5 who are deaf, hard of hearing, blind, low vision, and deafblind. We provide virtual, in-home, and community-based services to families of infants and toddlers across the entire state. We offer 6 campus-based preschool locations to eligible children aged 3 to 5 in the Phoenix and Tucson metropolitan areas. And in addition, we provide itinerant preschool services to Region 1 in northern Arizona, as well as in Yuma. In January, I'll be back, along with Assistant Director Michelle Ahern, to present in a bit more detail on the following: enrollment trends over the last 5 years, service delivery models, how things have changed, child outcomes, our professional development activities, and most importantly, our current initiatives, which includes a comprehensive review of our blind, low vision, birth to 5 services across the state, specifically looking at eligibility, access to services, equity of services, and the intensity and fidelity of service delivery. Certainly, if there are other topics you'd be interested in exploring, do not hesitate to reach out. That's all I have for you, unless you have any questions.
Thank you, Kendra. I do have a sort of a question. I think one of the things I'm interested in is how what you guys are doing in early learning connects with what they're doing from the assessment side. So how do we bridge that transition period?
That I could definitely do that for you. I look forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other questions for Kendra?
Yeah, a quick one. You mentioned a quote or a figure early in your presentation about a number of, was it neurotransmitters that were developing per second?
Neural connections.
Neural connections. And at
Yes.
what age is that? Or can you just repeat that? Because that was pretty
Yes,
daunting.
most definitely. In the first few years of life, so birth to 3, more than 1 million new neural connections are formed every second. That is why we have to capitalize and invest in this period. It's as simple as that.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Linda.
Thank you for your presentation. I would love to dive more into that, the birth to 5 age range, and how mentoring works, how you work with families, how the success rates are, and with deaf children, deafblind children, however all of that works. That information I want to see, like numerically, broken down, maybe we should have some sort of separate work study for that, so that we are able to really dive into that information in more depth. The different categories, for example, the itinerant services that are provided, Birth to 3, what that looks like compared with the campus-based programming that exists, Birth to 5, total programming, just to be more aware of and have a better sense of how communication is being developed for those children, because you talked about those incredible rates of brain growth during that time, but what about the families not being able to keep up with that? How are we supporting all those little questions that I have? I don't want to take a ton of time right now, but is a work study something that we could do to dive more into that depth with that information and learn more?
I will definitely make a note of that. We have a couple of them already in the works, and I know that they are going to do a more in-depth presentation at January's board meeting as well.
And I will definitely go through those numbers for you, Linda.
Thank you again. Okay, we did not receive any public comments on agendized items for 1.5, so we're going to move on to 1.6, information items, superintendent's report. Superintendent Reichman.
Thank you. Good afternoon, President Kneifel, Acting Assistant Superintendent Ketchoff, Assistant Superintendent Cooper, members of the board, and ASDB community. Welcome to the November 14th board meeting. I'm just going to give a brief report this evening because you've already listened to 2 presentations this afternoon, one of them on our campus student assessment results and our work to continue to improve their English language scores as well as their math skills and so on. And then you also just heard about our early learning program. So thank you, everyone, for coming to present to the board this evening, and I look forward to the January board meeting to learn even more about our early learning program. I want to say that this is our final board meeting for the year of 2024. This year has absolutely flown by. We are already talking about 2025. Our next board meeting, we will get together in January of 2025. From now until the end of this year, it is our time for a variety of holidays and so forth. We get together with family and friends. It's a busy time of year. It is also my time in the year where I like to take a pause and reflect on the year that we have just finished. And I also like to think about the year ahead of us, 2025. We have a lot happening in 2025. The last 3 board meetings, I have discussed with you all about the importance of organizational stability. We have talked about the organizational culture and that stability must be grounded in our core values with clear shared goals and strong leadership. We have to develop plans for the future, and those plans have to be flexible and adaptable so that they can change as our environment changes. We have been talking about this for quite some time, for at least the last 3 board meetings. That stable organization promotes growth in our culture and promotes planning for the future. You just heard from our leaders who are heavily focused on the growth of our students. When we look forward to 2025, I have 2 requests from you, our board. My first request is that you take the time to set 2 work study sessions, one in February, where you will learn more about ASDB's fiscal resources, our money, as it were, because any plans that we decide to move forward with are dependent on our fiscal resources. The second work study session will be scheduled for April, and that session will focus on our strategic plan 2.0. So that will be from 2025 to 2030 for the next 5 years. We will have a draft of the strategic plan ready to go, and we will be sharing that with you, the board. We want you to take a look at that, have some conversations, dig into it, and provide us some feedback. The goal is that at the May board meeting, you will have the strategic plan 2.0 ready for your approval. And then we will move forward. July 1st, 2025, we will implement the new strategic plan. And that strategic plan will identify our priorities and how we will organize and prioritize our resources. That is my first request. My second request is that you look around at our leadership team, who we have leading our programs here at ASDB. We will be bringing contracts to you, our board, in January and again in March, perhaps some additional contracts in May. And we will be asking for your approval to renew these contracts. I am asking that you seriously consider their knowledge, their expertise, their experience, their hard work for ASDB and their leadership of our organization that they have provided for quite some time. And I will ask that you renew all of their contracts because, again, that is critical to maintain stability within our organization, to be able to address our future challenges that will continue to come. We know that our environment is ever-changing. Our recent election shows that. Our environment will continue to change again. We have a strong leadership team to guide us through those changes. So those are my asks from you, the ASDB board. And the last thing I will say is that I am very appreciative of your time and your commitment and your energy and your caring and your support of ASDB. Because of your support, we are able to strive for that best education and the best support for our students. Thank you. And I am ready to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Any questions from anyone on the phone? Thank you, Superintendent Reichman. Moving on to 1.7, information item, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction Report, Interim Assistant Superintendent Orrin Ketchoff.
right. Good afternoon, Board President Kneifel, Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendent Cooper, and members of the board and members of the community. As Annette mentioned, here we are already in November, and back when I was a teacher and a principal, I always thought this was one of the funnest times of the year to be in education. By now, classes are usually kind of within their flow, and there are a lot of holidays coming up, which do lead to shorter weeks. They also lead, though, to opportunities to build in celebrations among students and staff. This is also the time of the year where we start to cram in everything we said we'd have accomplished within that first half of the school year. For me, one of the items I really wanted to do the first half of the school year was to go on ride-alongs with our itinerant staff through the rural parts of the state. So far, I have been able to go on a few ride-alongs throughout Flagstaff, Prescott, and Prescott Valley, and I've been able to observe our TVIs and O&M specialists at work. I want to publicly thank Laura Aloco, Carissa Reed, and Kathy Williams for letting me tag along with them. I am thoroughly impressed and proud of how they spent their time working with students, in some cases parents, gen ed teachers, and SPED directors during these visits. All of them represented ASDB, as well as our profession, with absolute dignity. I have some additional trips through Show Low and White River planned for December, and I'm looking forward to going on those and learning more from our itinerant teachers who travel across the rural parts of our state every single day. In staying with the theme of how our teachers represent ASDB and the profession with absolute dignity, I do want to take some time to recognize Karina Lee for being recognized as one of the finalists for the Raytheon Leaders in Education Award a couple weeks back. The Tucson Values Teachers Stand Up for Teachers 2024 Gala was held on November 7th in Tucson. And at that event, Karina Lee, a teacher here on the Tucson campus, was one of only 3 teachers in Pima County to be a finalist for the Raytheon Leaders in Education Award, Elementary Division. Although she did not win the award, we are very proud to have her on our team, as Karina holds many certifications, including the National Board Certification, which we all know is one of the most rigorous professional teacher certifications available here in the United States. This is not the first time that Tucson Values Teachers has honored ASDB teachers. Back in January, they presented the January Teacher Excellent Award to Maggie Dirksen, who's a teacher at the ASDB Tucson Preschool. And I do want to thank all of them for their continued hard work. As we head into the new year, as Superintendent Reichman mentioned, there are going to be a lot of decisions that ASDB leadership and the board are going to have to make. As we make these decisions, I think it's important that we remember the work of Maggie, Karina, Laura, Carissa, and Kathy, and all the other teachers and related service providers here at ASDB, and remember what they do and the students who they influence. Although our student numbers might be getting smaller, the impact on the students we serve is not. We have a lot of great things happening across the state, and we do employ phenomenal staff who could easily work somewhere else, but they do want to be part of this team. So no matter if it's in a general education classroom, a home visit from a birth to 3 teacher, or here in our ASDB classrooms, our teachers are giving it their all. And I am proud in my final year in this position to continue to assist the principals and directors through the rest of the school year as they support their staff who go forth and then support our students. You all have my board report. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Any questions? Anyone on the phone with a question? Okay, hearing none, moving on to 1.8, information item, Assistant Superintendent of Agency Operation and Support Services Report. Assistant Superintendent Shana Cooper.
Good afternoon, Board President, Superintendent Reichman, Interim Assistant Superintendent Packhoff, members of the board, community, and staff members. Each of the directors have provided you report, and in summary, the IT department continues to work on numerous activities, enhancing our technical infrastructure and support staff with their various of setting up equipment and electronic. The October 1st was recently submitted to the Department of Education and identified 4 students in our site-based campuses. Last year, the amount reported was 428. The transportation team continues to monitor the utilization and overall health of the agency fleet and transportation of our students. The food services team is working with campuses to implement a barcode scanning process to improve the cafeteria line at the point of sale. For business services, the budget and financial report for September 2024 and 2023 will be provided separately under agenda item 4.1. The team continues to work hard to process vendor payments, travel claims, and payroll for staff, and we have not yet received an update from the State Office of Strategic Planning and Budgeting on the agency's fiscal year 2026 budget package. As you all know, we submitted various funding issues in September related to the contracted transportation and one-to-one nursing service costs that we continue to see increase. As our operating expenses increase and the revenues decrease due to the declining enrollment and the end of funding that the federal government provided due to the effects of the COVID pandemic, we are working hard on seeking additional funding resources. The Human Resources team is continuing to actively address the ongoing recruitment and retention challenges, and we will be bringing to the board in January for approval salary increase recommendations or any salary schedule adjustments for 2026. Within consent agenda item 6.1, we have the approval of several salary schedule updates for this current year. And the first is related to the classified specialist recruitment salary schedule, where a recent market survey was conducted for special educational instructional assistants, and we have recommended an increase for the special recruitment rate. If approved, this will change become effective November 23rd. Secondly, to address the minimum wage increase for the city of Tucson to $15 per hour, effective January 4th, we are requesting to approve the classified sector recruitment and coach salary schedules for all agency staff that are making less than $15 per hour. And as a reminder, as an agency under the state, we are not required to follow the minimum wage increase for Arizona or its cities. However, we try to remain competitive and work to increase our minimum wages. Overall, the agency operations and support services team is working on their priority goals from the strategic plan, advocating for levels of funding from the state, in looking at identifying funding for the master facility plan. As we all know, there is a growing need to upgrade and maintain our facilities. Additionally, several of our agency key stakeholders continue to review data metrics of the agency's resources as we focus on finding ways to cut and balance the agency's budget for this year and the years that immediately follow. Ultimately, when presented with any recommendations, the board will have to decide if there will be any changes made to put ASDB on the path to a financially sustainable future. However, we remain to move forward with what is best for kids. Last but not least, as we approach Thanksgiving, it's the perfect moment to focus on the importance of gratitude. With that said, I want to take this time to thank everyone for their well wishes as I continue to recover from my hip surgery. I am appreciative and reminded of how fortunate I am to have such a dedicated team of staff and colleagues who truly support me. And I hope to be back and visibly seen back in January. That wraps up my report, and there are no other updates to provide at this time. And I'm open to questions or respond to any comments you make. Thank you.
Thank you, Shana. Any comments or questions for Shana? Okay, thank you again, Shana. Hearing none, moving on to 2.1. Action item, approval of the consent agenda consistent with board policy to include items 3.2, 3.3, 5.1, 6.1, 6.2, 7.2, 7.3, and 7.4. I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Cienko. All those in favor for approving the consent agenda items as read, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Hearing none, the consent agenda items are passed. Moving on to 3.1. Action item, approval of new district agreements, interim assistant superintendent Katchoff.
Board President Kneifel, Superintendent Reichman, and members of the board, we do have one renewal with the Page Unified. If you have any questions, please let me know. Oh, there's a new one? Sorry. I'm sorry, I got ahead on the agenda. Sorry. We have 3 new district agreements that we would like approved. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Any questions on the 3 new district agreements? If none, I will take a motion.
Okay. I move that there's a motion for new agreements with Liberty, Cannon, and what's the third Page? Is that right?
There's some School for the Arts.
Okay, School for the Arts.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed or abstentions? Hearing and seeing none, that motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to 4.1, information item, finance report. Kim Bittridge, Director of Business Services.
Good afternoon, Board President Kneifel, Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendent Cooper, and Assistant Superintendent Katchoff, members of the board, and ASDB community. You have been provided with our most recent board report that covers the financial data for September 2023 and 2024. This data was covered in more detail at our most recent Finance Committee meeting held on Thursday, November 7th, with Board President Kneifel and Board Member Gordon. Also in attendance were Superintendent Reichman and Assistant Superintendent Cooper. The total student count provided in the board report for October 1st, 2024 shows 1,951 compared to 2,178 on July 1st of 2023, a total decrease of 227 students. When we compare the student count as of October 1st, 2024, there were 1,922, which shows an increase of 29 students. Campus students have increased by 3, preschool students have increased by 17, birth to 3 have increased by 16, while the regions have decreased by 7. As of October 1st, we had about 522 full-time equivalent positions, which included 8.5 full-time equivalent at Foundation for Blind Children. At that time, we employed 733 staff. The number of staff have increased by 14 since the June report. There are currently 156 vacancies across the agency that we're actively recruiting for. The highlights of the September 2024 financial report shows the total revenue of $6.7 million was $247,000 lower than September of 2023, the revenues of $7 million. The major difference is the decrease in the general fund spend year to date, especially with the budget cuts. We received classroom site fund transfer, and the per pupil amount has increased from $758 in 2024 to $792 in 2025. The budget fiscal year obligated expenses of $14.7 million were $900,000 less than budget fiscal year 2025 obligated expenses of $15.6 million. The increases are in payroll and employee-related expenditures of $700,000 with the increase in filled positions, and an increase in professional and outside services of $300,000 with the delay of starting the Birth to 3 programs last year with Desert Voices and Zimmerman, offset by a decrease in operating risk management charges of $418,000 that had not been transferred at this time. Our ending cash fund balance is lower than this time last year by $775,000. This is consistent with the decreased spend from the general fund. This concludes my report, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Kim. Any questions? Okay, thank you again. Moving on to 6.3, information, discussion, and possible action item, education organizations at ASDB.
I'll make a motion to move into executive session.
I have a motion to move into executive session. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a second from Commissioner Gordon and Commissioner Chapman. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Okay, so pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A1, the board may go into executive session, which may not be open to the public, for the purposes of discussion and consideration of I just started reading the wrong one. I'm sorry. Wait, yes. Wrong one.
The one above.
One above, which will not be open to the public for discussion, consultation, for legal advice with the board's attorneys as it relates to this item. Got way ahead of myself.
Okay, so we will move into executive session at 4:58 p.m. Live on here. We have adjourned executive session, but we are going to take a 10-minute break. We will resume the meeting at 5:40. You can hear it? Okay, yay. Okay, we're going to resume the meeting. Per the discussion in executive session, I would like to make a motion to direct Annette and Maria to present information with examples, working with Michelle and Deb, our AAGs, to present examples of things that can and can't be done with a meet and confer for ASDB as a state agency. And have that presentation preferably in January if possible, so we can then move forward with the discussion on whether or not to move to create an age policy. I've made a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay, I need to go back to my. Okay, item 6.4, discussion and action item, approval of Superintendent Reichman's performance evaluation. Do we have any questions, comments?
Lynn, I think we're on a break.
No, we came back at 5:40.
If you look at the video, they're back.
All right, I'm moving on to 6.4 again, discussion and action item, approval of Superintendent Reichman's performance evaluation. Any comments, questions? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve Superintendent Reichman's performance evaluation.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. 7.1, information and discussion item, introduction and possible discussion of policies BAA, IGA, IMG, and JF. Maria Murphy, Director of Policy and Government Relations.
Good evening, Board President Kneifel, members of the Board, Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendents, staff, and ASDB community. For the record, my name is Maria Murphy. I'm the Director of Policy and Government Relations. You have the policies redlined before you. I have not received any public comments or any questions about them. These are for a first read, so they will hopefully go to consent agenda in January. But at this time, I'd like to make myself available for any questions if there are any.
Any questions for Maria?
Yes, this is Lynn.
Go ahead, Lynn.
I have a question about JF.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I would just suggest that we might consider where we're requiring MET prior to placement, that we also make sure that there's a current evaluation, because when we have an MET, oftentimes they just review old evaluations, and you don't always have current information. I'm getting a terrible echo, that's why I'm...
I can certainly take that under advisement and go back to my subject matter experts to see about adding that in. And again, as I previously mentioned, it is a first read, so we still have the ability to make revisions if need be.
Yeah, Maria, this is Lynn again. I'd be happy to talk to you too, just from being in the field and sitting in on a number of these situations.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm very happy to take you up on that. Absolutely.
Great. Just some suggestions from some of the situations we've been in.
Thank you. Any other questions for or suggestions for Maria? Thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
Moving on to, I just want to make sure, 7.5, discussion and possible action items, schedule possible work-study sessions for February and April of 2025. Do you want us to take out our calendars right now, or do you want, would it be possible for Leticia to pull us for available Thursdays? I don't know if I have the ACDHH board calendar. Katie, do you have the ACDHH board calendar? I would lean towards this. We're actually looking at February and April. So I would assume typically we do them on the same or Thursdays.
Letty and Wendy's mics are not hot.
I think mine is on now. I believe mine is on now. So I'm looking at the CDHH website, and on the calendar, I don't see anything added to the calendar yet.
So would the, is this the?
And Linda's asking about, that's the, Katie's saying, yeah, I don't see anything there yet.
So could we tentatively schedule for the second Thursday in February and the second Thursday in April for work-study sessions?
This is Superintendent Reichman, yes.
I think the second Thursday should be okay.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and motion that we schedule work-study sessions for the second Thursday and the second Thursday in February and April 2025. Do I have a second on that motion? Thank you, Commissioner Sanko.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Hearing none, motion carries. All righty, moving on to 7.6, discussion and action item, election of 2025 board officers. Pursuant to policy, this shall be held at the last meeting of the calendar year. Any discussion, any nominations?
I would like to nominate Sue Kay to remain as president, and Linda's saying I second that. She's
I will
done an
accept
amazing
that
job,
nomination.
Katie's
I would like to, unless anyone else is interested, I would like to nominate Brittany to continue in the secretary. Okay.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second for the chair and the secretary position for Suke and Brittany. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye and aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. 8.1, call to the public on non-agenda items.
We did get a submission of a public comment on a non-agenda item from Carmen Robles. Are you here, Carmen? Would you like to come down and comment? Or I can read it for you. Okay.
Happy to have you. Hello there.
So my name is Carmen Robles.
Would you just move the mic a little
A bit
closer?
closer, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, my name is Carmen Robles, and I'm from Sierra Vista. And I'm just trying to find the comment thing that I did, so sorry about that. So I guess I'll read at first, and then I know there's some facts about, which you probably already know, that 3 out of 1,000 children are deaf or hard of hearing. And then imagine how many deaf children are deprived. The fact that the brain has no preference for language input as long as it has a strong language foundation. This is language acquisition, and this is sign language. So on my comments, well, my son Elias, he's a twin. He's just turned 6, and he's deaf, hard of hearing, and he has a cochlear in the right ear and a hearing aid in the left. So the thing about is that he can't attend ASDB unless he's a resident there, because there's a 50-mile radius, and that's the transportation policy. So I'm just, and the thing about it is that he can't attend unless he's actually at the dorms, and he can't do that. He's been traumatized, and his mom passed away when he was just barely 2 of breast cancer, and being at the dorms is not an option. So I'll just go ahead and read what I had put in my comments, and it says, "My name is Carmen Robles. I am here to fight for my grandson Elias Robles Lovato, and I will not accept to give up fighting for him because ASDB has a policy that is causing language deprivation, which means that they're not giving my grandson a chance to grow in language. This causes severe social and mental health. Elias needs language acquisition. I am here to protect him, and ASDB needs to change the policy so my grandson can grow. An itinerant teacher of the deaf can do so much because he needs full immersion in ASL, in a direct instruction of ASL in a classroom. The policy states case by case, so I'm fighting that he goes to ASDB without going to the dorm because my grandson has lost many things in his life. He has a twin whom they adore each other, and they need each other after their mom died from breast cancer. I cannot take Elias away from his twin brother, which would traumatize him more than ever. So please change your policy so my grandson can grow. Thank you."
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carmen, thank you for coming up and sharing your story.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. And moving on to 8.2, discussion and possible action item, agenda items for the next regular board meeting. scheduled for January 16th, 2025 in Phoenix. Any ideas for
I have
agenda?
a question for Sue Kate. Did we have something about the ELP for the early learning program for the next board meeting, or is that separate for the work study? That's my question. I'm not sure if that's a separate item for the agenda or the work study.
So they are planning to present in depth in January, and then after that, if we need to consider another work study, we can do that.
All right, thank you for that clarification.
Okay, if nothing here, you can always contact myself or Annette to ask for something to be added to the agenda.
We're just having a presentation from Maria about the.
We voted on that.
Yes.
So
Okay.
that will be on the agenda as well as the early childhood learning.
Okay.
Okay. All righty, moving on to 9.1, action item adjournment.
This is Lynn.
Yes, Lynn.
I move to adjourn this meeting. I know you're all surprised.
I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanko. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. We are adjourned at 5:58 p.m. Thank you, everyone who attended today. I appreciate you being here.